Today is transplant day. These tomato plants are just over 8 weeks old and they are too big for the grow lights here. We've got to get them out into the greenhouse where they can thrive out there. So today is moving day for the tomato plants. I have been using a layer of 2.5 ounce frost blanket covered with 6 mil greenhouse plastic on top of these mini greenhouse hoops that you find instructions on how to build in the Mittleider gardening course book at mittleidergardening.com to protect these plants during the harshest part of winter here in the greenhouse. We're in the middle of January now. I understand that February can be a very cold time of year also, but we're taking these off so we can transplant the tomatoes because it's almost 70 degrees in the greenhouse today. It was nice and warm last night. It's been so for the last several days, and so when you get these tomatoes out and into the greenhouse. As a side note, you'll notice I've got well-developed sugar snap pea plants that need to be tied up, and then I've got all these spaces in between, and I've planted 3 times. What I found is that something is coming in at night and we're digging up the seeds, so I wasn't getting any plants. So we're going to germinate some seeds in the basement, transplant the seedlings, and then we will avoid the problem of some little night creature coming in and eating our sugar snap peas. Apparently we're not the only animal on the planet that likes sugar snap peas. You can see the indentations in the soil where the seeds used to be. For ease in turning in the nutrients into the grow box, we've pulled the watering line off to the side and also the lower wire that holds the vertical growing twine in place. We've added 1 ounce of pre-plant nutrient mix to the soil per linear foot and also a 1/2 ounce of Mittleider weekly feed. I'll just turn this in, we'll put the items back and plant the tomato plants. This custom soil mix is made out of sawdust and sand, 2 parts sawdust, 1 part sand. And you can see as I'm turning this, we're getting all these earthworms coming up from underneath. They love this soil. And who wouldn't with all the natural mineral nutrients we're putting into it? Another thing that you'll see as I turn the soil is roots from the previous crops that were left here in the fall when we removed the last crops. These roots will get turned into the soil, providing organic matter, which can only benefit the soil. These are smaller roots, they're easy to deal with, they're healthy. If they had any kind of disease or problems with them, I would not put them in. Just because I like to document everything, the temperature in the greenhouse right now is 72.2 degrees and 68% humidity. It is January 13th at 1/4 afternoon. Here is my geo-air manifold that pulls the air through the tubes underground and pushes it out here into the greenhouse. Here on the side I have my thermometer with the temperature probe attached and the temperature probe inside, but for recording data I brought the temperature probe over here and put it in the soil. So right now the temperature of the soil is 55.2 degrees. The air temperature over here in the sun is 77.9 with 57% humidity in the greenhouse as we're planting these tomatoes. So the soil is a little cooler than they used to down in the basement, which will help in the transplanting because it will shock the transplants a little bit, give them a chance to develop more root system than foliage, and ultimately provide a better, healthier plant with greater production. Now that I've turned in the nutrients and screed the soil so it's nice and flat and level, we put the wire back for tying the vertical growing twine. We've taken the garden marker and marked 6 inches down the soil bed here, so we know where to put the tomato plants every 9 inches. Starting 2 inches in from the end, first tomato plant will be here. This is 6 inches, so we'll put the second one here, 9 inches. Then this is 6 inches, so that's 9 inches. We'll put the third one here, so forth and so forth. Very quick, easy way to mark an entire bed in just minutes. I'll put a link down below this video on how to make this garden marker. It comes from the Mittleider gardening course book. When we transplant, we always remove some leaves, leaving sufficient for the plant. but removing the stress from transplanting by removing some leaves. So these are the leaves that we removed. You can see these plants are nice, cleanly pruned, and we've added 1/4 of an ounce of nitrogen to the soil about 4 inches away from the plants, and now we're going to water those in. I've also tied these up, so these are 9 inches apart, but they're growing in alternate directions going down the row. So this is growing to the left, this is going to the right, to the left, to the right, and to the left. When we transplant and fertilize, I like to water with a hand wand just to make sure I've knocked any fertilizer that might have gotten onto the plant leaves, and to help settle the soil and make sure that we get a nice watering around the roots, so there isn't air pockets down there in the soil, and so we can better dissolve the nutrients. The white specks you see in here are perlite from the seedling mixture that we use. While my wife was transplanting the tomato plants, I decided to tie up the sugar snap peas. So these are looking much better now. I'm looking forward to getting the other transplants in here in about 2 or 3 weeks. Everything looks great. In 3 days we'll start the regular weekly feeding of the plants. It being winter and colder than it is in the summer, I will typically feel the soil to see whether they need to be watered or not. I don't know if you can hear in the background, but we have the fans going in here. It got really hot, 78 degrees, much hotter than I'm used to right now. I had the doors open to get some fresh air in here. But it's great to see these tomato plants in the garden, full of blossoms and also with tomatoes. This is LDS Prepper reminding you, if ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. To learn more about seedling production, soil bed growing, and greenhouses, whether it's in the garden greenhouse or geothermal greenhouse, check the links below this video, or go to ldsprepper.com.